Very good afternoon to our viewers tuning in live for today's panel, Healthy Real Estate, Can Buildings Protect Us from Future Pathogens? Now, the focus of sustainable and healthy buildings has been a global trend for some time. The importance of a building's layout and physical structure in particular does affect the health and well-being of its occupants and such. This has been a huge and growing topic even before the current crisis. But today, in a crisis where previously unthinkable approaches have now become the new norm, we want to find out how companies can keep up with their sustainability momentum. My guests today are three real estate developers involved in the sustainable and healthy building momentum. We want to explore what is being done in the Philippines, what more we can do to ensure continuous development, and whether or not healthy buildings might be able to protect us during a future outbreak. We have three panelists today, starting with Christopher Narciso, Executive Vice President at Arthaland Development Corporation, Emma Imperial, President and CEO of Imperial Homes Corporation, and Marla Mendoza, Assistant Marketing Manager at Filigree. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you, Deborah.
Thank you. Now, to start off with perhaps a definition from our panelists to set some context, perhaps starting with Chris. Chris, what are healthy buildings?
Well, healthy buildings it's a classification of a building that has features that protects and takes care of the occupants, whether it's an office building or a residential building. It promotes practices that keeps the occupants well and facilitates opportunities for them to connect with one another and to live life to the fullest. That's essentially a healthy building.
Sure, Chris. I understand that Arthaland's offices are triple certified, LEED, Verde, and EDGE. Could you tell us a little bit more about this?
Well, I think number one, our Arthaland Century Pacific Tower, it's the first office building in the Philippines to be triple certified with regards to those green certifications. But lately, it's also been certified under the WELL program, and that deals more with the health and wellness of the occupants of the building. So you can actually say it has 4 certifications on the, and that's all under our sustainable philosophy of development, no? So for the LEED, the Verde, as well as the EDGE, there's a lot of focus in terms of the environment and how we save on energy and other natural resources when we developed the building as well as when we are operating it. And a lot of those features are actually beneficial to our tenants or the occupants, the users, right? And with regards to the WELL certification, it measures the level of the features that we put into the building, as well as the practice. It's not just the physical, it also involves the soft side, the soft skills of everybody who occupies the building, but especially the property manager.
All right, thank you, Chris. Emma, now a question for you. Green, sustainable, and healthy buildings has been along your agenda. Tell us a little bit, what is your definition of healthy building?
Currently there are available healthy materials in the market, and I think the one that really is pioneering this one is humbly our company, because we have a technology that comes from Denmark. It uses ultra high performance concrete, and usually this kind of materials it's non-porous, and therefore bacteria doesn't come in, and then the life of the people inside is really going to be safer, because if there's no bacteria, there's not going to be molds, then the immune system is better. So there are materials out there, and also the company, I think, same with Chris, we're like the pioneer for the EDGE in the Philippines, because we've been using green materials. We started with solar, and now we're using connovate building technology from Denmark, and that's really healthy. And I could cite further on later on some studies. They use high performance concrete for the pigs, and when the pigs were having diarrhea because the building materials that they used for the pens were very of low quality, so they started using ultra high performance concrete, and then the health of the pigs became better, because there was like the study was having like death for every 100 of pigs. So there are materials now there that would keep buildings healthy, you know. So.
All right, thank you, Emma. Now on to Marla a little bit. Marla, could you tell us about your version of healthy buildings and a little bit on Filigree's agenda?
Okay, well, healthy buildings, as we've known, actually what is a more popular term before, I think, is green buildings. But I think with everything that has been happening, we move forward to a better phrase or a better term, which is healthy buildings. It's not a new term, it's not a new word, it's just a greater awareness that other than the importance of constructing in a way that is environmentally friendly, that can help the ecosystem, and actually basically the whole point of having it green is fighting climate change, right? But then there's also heightened awareness now that buildings should be able to support and protect humans. So this is really a more holistic approach, because again, it's not just for the environment but also for the occupants. So it's physically, emotionally, productivity, efficiency of their lives. Healthy buildings are supposed to really support the whole life, the whole human experience actually of the occupants or tenants. So that is for us, that is a healthy building. For Filigree, to cite as an example, for Filigree, we're a 3-year-old real estate brand. We currently have 4 projects right now, coming up with 5. And from the very beginning, what's nice with Filigree is we have always been purposeful and well intentional on the design of our building in such a way that we really focused on human experience. We really wanted to offer projects that will better the life of our end users. So that was really an advantage to us. And what's nice was it was really from the get-go, from the onset, from the conceptualization, we had all that in mind, that what's important are the end users, to give them a better lifestyle. And then also after that, one of our most premium residential project called Botanica Nature Residences is also Verde certified. Verde is a local green rating system. It's for the Philippines. We're proud to be rated 4-star under Verde. For Botanica, it was also again very intentional for it to be sustainable and green in such a way that we really hired and made sure all the materials we used, the design was really well thought out. We collaborated with a team of experts, architects, planners, who really collaborated with us to make sure that from construction to the design, everything was purposeful. So it kind of works, how do you say this? It totals up to ours, specifically for Botanica. It's not only sustainable, but also designed well. So it equates to a healthy building. I think our other buildings aren't green, aren't certified green yet, or we don't have an award yet for the other buildings. But then still with the design that we've incorporated, they're still considered healthy buildings. So there are different ways that you can actually be a healthy building.
Sure. Thank you for sharing your thoughts on that, Marla. Now, I want to go to what you said a little bit about beyond conserving resources, beyond smart energy consumption. And that brings me to the topic of our panel today. When we talk about a healthy building, can a healthy building protect us from a future outbreak?
Yeah, definitely. You were in a very unusual, we're in a very unusual situation right now wherein we're all mandated to stay indoors, right? And our only form of shelter is where we are, our buildings. And I think where uh, the building that you're in, I mean, whether it's residential or non-residential, there's also study that 90% of our day is spent inside these buildings. So if you're asking, your question was if it can help protect us from pathogens, definitely. Um, they
Let's
say
say
that you're more,
ventilation, right?
I'm
For
sorry?
example, the way the ventilation is designed, the way the offices are laid out.
Yes. For example, social distancing. I'd have to give our projects also as an example. We're very much into open, generous spaces. So with that, with the need to do social distancing, our tenants are able to do that. We're not offering units or projects that are cramped or that are very close to each other. We also have single corridor hallways, which again allows for social distancing. With air ventilation and the presence of natural daylight, again, that's another thing that helps with having a better healthy system, right? I mean, you're more susceptible to these pathogens and diseases when you have low immune system. And basically, your overall environment helps you have that healthy body. Also, it says the small details also, like if your building is a walkable building, like let's say to essential services, right? Then you can always walk instead of, which allows you to have a little exercise as well, instead of using cars and producing more to the pollution, to the outside pollution. So there are, yes, I think definitely your building can protect you from pathogens. And I think the more that you have a desirable indoor environment, the more you want to stay inside as well, the more you're not anxious. Again, I'm just going to go back to having substantial daylight. I mean, we all need the vitamin C. Again, I'm going to go back. Our units have balconies, 11 to 13 square meters. That space is generous, is good enough space for you to just go out, get some sun, and really take as much as you can from the outdoors with this ECQ period. So I guess those are some ways that buildings can help us or protect us from pathogens.
All right, thank you, Marla, for those thoughts. Chris, I understand that this green design is a large part of Arthaland's agenda when it comes to office spaces. What are your thoughts on the matter? Can the layouts, is there any correlation of preventing us from diseases, pathogens?
Definitely, Deborah. For one thing, our green buildings is actually part of our sustainability campaign. No? We, as a company, we believe that everything we do, everything we develop, has to make things better for the occupants. No? Make the future better for our future residents or occupants. And our way of doing this is to ensure that the developments satisfy the highest levels of sustainability certifications with regards to green building certifications. And of late, wellness. So first of all, the green buildings, the way we see it is you need to be able to provide features and measure them to ensure that the comfort level of the occupants are better than that of other buildings. So as Marla mentioned, there are a lot of things that a building design can have so that it would have better features for in terms of energy, water consumption, air ventilation, air filtration, everything. Even minimize the surface contact for the users. But I think what's even more important are the soft skills that are required for a healthy building. Green buildings will ensure that those physical features are present, but it goes beyond that. We want to be more encompassing when we talk about sustainability, in the sense that there has to be protocols, practices in place for the occupants as well as the building manager or the property manager to ensure that there are guidelines and practices that would for example, this current pandemic, it teaches us a lot of things, but in terms of preparedness, it's quite crucial for the property managers, the residents or the occupants to be very familiar with all of the safety measures and the healthcare guidelines to ensure that everybody would be safe and healthy.
All right, thanks, Chris, for sharing those thoughts. Emma, now from a residential segment standpoint, can a healthy building protect homeowners from diseases?
The company has been doing all our developments as solar-powered community, and this is our commitment to World Bank and IFC as their champion for the Philippines for affordable housing. So when you have EDGE certification, you're able to take care of the savings for electricity, which take care of the mental. It's like when you wanna help the buyer, you gotta help her mentally, physically, and even her health. So as far as mentally, when you have solar, they're able to save savings from these electricity bills. And they're able to also do some kind of little business from that. And at the same time, when you have the EDGE, you're able to save water from using the right equipment. Like we use POTC. This is a approved faucet by World Bank. And the biggest part of this that we're doing now is that we're using this building materials that I was just explaining a while ago. And there's never been any developer that has used ultra high performance concrete, because you use them for highways and roads and bridges. But they were able to invent this in Denmark, and this high performance concrete is able to avoid leak-proof surface because of its non-porosity. And this one resists the growth of bacteria and viruses. In other words, application of high-performance concrete eliminates potential diseases and infection. So this is really the biggest thing that is really happening in the industry. Like, there's a lot of technology now which could really well answer not just opening of the window, not just the solar, which is also needed, because if you bring solar and give savings to the people, it helps climate change and then protects the immune system of the entire society, entire Philippines. If it's cleaner air, cleaner environment, then the immune system of our people here is going to be better. But at the same time, when you build like this, then what you do is you really protect somebody inside. So I'll give you an example. If you build hollow blocks, the porosity of the hollow blocks, the algae from outside goes inside, and in time, the elements get exposed, and they'll start getting build up molds inside your homes. If you go inside your houses, you see some molds. These are so dangerous to lungs of people. When you have the right technology, the right building material that's available in the market right now, then that's not anymore possible. They cannot infiltrate, and so your safety inside a house is really there. It's no longer what you're saying. Just putting the right painting or the right window. No, it's the material itself that is protecting the people. So
right.
So that's a very big invention nowadays that's happening in the market.
Right, Emma, if I understand you correctly, what you're saying is that the building materials themselves can play a large part in the spread of a future pandemic.
That's right, because it prevents viruses, and when you prevent viruses, especially now when people are trying to stay in their homes, then when you are in a healthy home, which is the real definition of a healthy home, then what happens is that their immune system gets stronger. Unlike when you're a place that uses still the old regular conventional way of construction, then the people that are there get sicker because the, the house is not well made. Well, this technology just got available 2 years ago because it was an invention in Denmark by all the institutes in Denmark, and we were so lucky to be able to bring it here and apply it for affordable housing, middle housing, and even now we're building 4 or 5 story condominium using the technology, and it's not even much higher than the precast walls is probably equal, but then it's safer, healthier, and it's faster.
Right, thanks for that, Emma. What I find interesting from both Chris and Emma is that we're talking about building design and construction materials and how that plays a part in preventing a future outbreak. Now, I have a question now for you from a developer standpoint, right? So removing ourselves from the tenants and from the homeowners, implication of a green building design, better construction materials in general moves towards higher costs for the developer. Now, beyond conserving resources for the tenants and for our home buyers, why should developers try to achieve healthy buildings? Perhaps starting with Chris, could you share some thoughts on this?
Well, why should developers consider green and healthy buildings?
Sure.
I think what the current situation has really emphasized now is we need to look at society as a whole, right? We don't live in a vacuum. We don't operate in a vacuum. We can't just consider our businesses and our industries operating in a vacuum. I think everybody is interrelated. Everybody is related. It's a whole ecosystem, whole economy relies on different industries and one another. So I think for one industry and one business and one company to do well, it has to ensure that it takes care of society and its community. And I believe that I hope that a lot of other developers would start to adopt the same outlook. Whereas it helps your business to take care of others. I guess you start with the people in your company, and then your shareholders, your customers, and everybody else in the community by coming up with healthy buildings, healthy developments, and you can ensure that. As mentioned earlier from the get-go, by adopting that mindset, everything is incorporated in the design and master planning stage already. And I think it pays. There are some costs to it, but there are also some derived savings. And but definitely there will be some cost, and as we've seen now, we've realized this before, but I think now it's quite evident that the costs of having unhealthy buildings, unhealthy environments, unhealthy working setups, everything, it will actually cost more. This whole pandemic, this whole issue of just being hospitalized, being treated, the cost to that are far greater. So I think if there's any one lesson that we can derive as developers is, the what we perceive as additional cost to ensure that a development, a project is sustainable, green, and healthy are actually minuscule to the negative effects that can happen. Right?
Sure, thanks, Chris. Emma, do you agree with this?
Oh yes, definitely. I was listening to Ray Dalio, and he was talking about the new world order for the global scenario, and of course we're going to be having a problem on finance, and a lot of countries will be affected. But continuously he was talking about climate change. And I was, I knew this way back in 2014 when we started our solar powered community. And people then at the time would not believe what I'm doing, because they said, she's putting solar and it's very expensive, and she's putting it on her smaller houses. But I continued doing it. And when the pandemic started, and I saw and I heard that the pollution has gone down. I mean, then you see that there's no difference between the rich and the poor. When you don't take care of the poor, or even the low income segment of the market, which really buys all the affordable housing that we do, if you don't do that, then it's equal when the pandemic comes. So when you protect the environment, you protect the low income buyers, you protect the middle income buyers, you protect everybody, then things will be better. The immune system of the people living in each country will be better. So if you can see the pandemic, which started in 1918, and recently they're coming every now so often, and we need to look at that, and then really the developers and builders should really embrace climate change factor in what they're doing. I've been trying to be an advocate on this, asking many developers to join hands, and sometimes it's so hard for them to give up a little bit of maybe profit. They still could not, because when you do something like this, you need to have a little bit of cost. But other than that, it's so hard for others to adopt changes. And when we start talking about solar, for instance, if they don't understand the concept, they will not, and they don't really want to understand it, then it's so hard for them to adopt it. But I can see that a lot of buyers now's perception is changing, and they now realize that a green home is better for them. Our company's has been 70% every year, because we've done the solar powered community since 2015, and then in 2018 we added the building technology of Denmark, which is really, really safe and also green. The panels uses 85% less cement, so we're not big contributor to the environment's pollution. So everybody should embrace this, and the government has a lot of stake in this. I think they should also be part of it, like giving incentives to developers who are really going into green buildings and healthy buildings. Probably give a policy that all developers should have one like this in order to get their permit, so that it will be for everyone. So everybody is going to adopt. Then the other thing is that the private sector, all the housing associations should have that as one of our policy, to include green and climate change mitigation. So that's really my stake into that.
Thank you, Emma, for those comments. Marla, I'm curious about your thoughts. Now, not so long ago, this green agenda has also been quite synonymous with a luxury developers agenda only, right? Do you still think that holds, or is it a new essential?
I agree with Chris and Emma in a way that actually with this pandemic, I think now developers have a greater responsibility to have not just green buildings, but as we say in our topic, it's really healthy buildings, right? It's no longer just a statement, if I may say, or a marketing angle. It's really a necessity now. It's an essential. We just can't take it for granted anymore. I know that green buildings have been associated with luxury properties, but I've also been reading, and there are ways that you can actually lower the cost and put up a green and healthy building. But again, also going back to what Chris said, the end the bottom line or the lasting value of what you can get from making or constructing a green building is far more worth than the initial cost that you will accumulate. Um, Again, it all has to do with design. From what I read and also from what Filigree has been doing, it's really what's important. Really, is if you want it to be all cost efficient and really future ready. That's also one of the keywords for green building and healthy buildings. Is that it's future ready. So again, from the get-go, from the onset, you have to have that smart plan design. You have to keep in mind the whole human experience of your residents, of your tenants. What do you actually want them to gain from living or from staying in your building? The whole planning, even as simple as the positioning of your building. I mean, whether it's, I mean, with sunlight, let's say, or actually, let's just say the location of the building. That alone is important, right? For example, for Filigree, we're located in a township that's actually also awarded as a best mixed-use development township. It's called the Garden City because of its landscape. It's really, if you come to Philinvest City, it's really more of greens rather than buildings. And this was intentional for them because they see the lasting value in living in a community that's more green, that has more open spaces, rather than living in a concrete jungle. And we agree with that, and it's actually very much in line with what we have in mind for our properties. It's important that not only is our building design good, sufficient, and will help the lifestyle of the occupants, but it's important also that when they get out, everything also works well. Everything is walkable. There are also green, sustainable developments, like let's say an eco jeep that they can use. So it works. It's again, it's holistic. It's just not indoor but also outdoor. So it's really a joint effort of real estate developers to have high and better consciousness of making things or constructing buildings and commercial, whether it be commercial, office, or residential, that are smartly designed, that are well planned, that are really people centric. Actually, that's what you want to say. It's all about the people. It really you have to move forward, not just by building and building and building. It really has to be more well thought out, purposeful, intentional. Right now, with the pandemic that's been going, it really the heightened awareness of how important where you are, what your house, your building. I'm pretty sure people who are confined in their homes are like, I wish I had a balcony, or I wish I had more space, or I wish I wish my place was near an essential service like a supermarket. These all come to consideration now. And so I think after this, really, again, it's a heightened awareness for the customers, and then, I mean, for the market. So it's greater responsibility for the real estate developers. So yeah, there should be greater awareness and really more seriousness in constructing not only green buildings but healthy buildings.
Sure, Marla, that being said, do you think the COVID-19 pandemic, you mentioned a heightened awareness, has the pandemic in the last few months raised the stakes for healthy buildings in the Philippines?
Yeah, definitely. I think so. I think it will be more reasonable, or how do I say it, justifiable. You know, why is this building green? Why is this real estate developer making a green building? Again, it's no longer just a statement or a marketing angle. There's a purpose to it. People will really realize that, hey, there's actually, these are all beneficial to us in the long run. In the future, the world is continuously evolving. Again, this pandemic shows how much the world is changing. We're not even prepared for it. So yeah, the stakes are higher. It gives us more reason. Even, I mean, real estate can even leverage on this, that to the market, that hey, you need this. This is actually essential. This is no longer just a luxury for luxury, right? This is, everyone needs it. Rich or poor, rich, middle class, poor, they all need it. We all need it. Everyone has a right to a healthy building, to live or work in a healthy building.
Thanks, Marla. Chris, do you agree with this perspective?
Definitely. I think what this pandemic situation has brought about is it actually accelerated the norms and the practices that will eventually become the new normal. The need for green and healthy and observing sustainable practices, not taking care of the environment, the people, as well as the companies and how things are done. We're moving to a new normal. Everybody's been saying that. So what this has what this has done is it has amplified the need for all of these practices, these good practices, in terms of designing and developing buildings, homes. In relating to market segments, even whether it's for luxury or affordable or mid, green features, healthy features were treated as marketing elements, things to help sell. I think we all have to adopt this as part of our lifestyle now. These are basic essentials to healthy living. And the way we see it is, like before, you would look at mobile phones as having internet data as luxuries. But as we see the need for this and we integrate it into how we do things, our lifestyles, then they become basic essentials already. And the way we see it is as this whole, as unfortunate as this situation is, it has actually accelerated the appreciation for personal health and smart, green, and sustainable developments.
Right, Chris. When you say acceleration or this change perception, in your view, will it push in the Philippine real estate sector developers to move in that direction and to action it?
I think so, and I hope so. As I mentioned, when your market or the buyers out there have a greater understanding and appreciation of what a healthy lifestyle means, what are the benefits to an individual and to a community and to the different industries. When your employees are healthier and have a healthier frame of mind, when all of this are appreciated, the market will shift to that. It's similar to the shift to quality. When a market matures and you realize all of this are essentials, not just something that you wish for, but actually basic essentials. And I think developers will start looking at this seriously and consider them not just additional costs, but must-haves already. And I really hope that more developers, if not all, adopt the practices that our company, Arthaland, together with Emma and Marla, we hope that we can inspire each other and others to practice the same sustainable, green, and healthy practices.
Right. Now, that being said, for developers who might not be immediately moving forward, what do you think is holding them back?
I think the traditional reason for that is really, as Emma mentioned a while ago, a lot of the other developers look at it as unessential cost. All of these features eat up to your profits. And mind you, Deborah, it takes a lot of commitment, a great deal of commitment and discipline for a company or a developer to actually achieve sustainability and those green building certifications, it's not easy. It's not easy. So it takes a lot of commitment for companies to actually achieve them. It has to involve the whole organization adopting the mindset that we need this, and this will actually make things better, not just for the company, as well as its buyers and the community as a whole.
Sure. So you would say it's more of a long run plan and a long-term commitment.
Yes. And hopefully, this unfortunate incident can probably accelerate that. I think that's one of the positives that we can derive out of this, is that this realization will accelerate developers in changing their mindset, because definitely the market will be early adapters in terms of looking for these types of developments.
Sure. Thanks, Chris. Emma, what are your thoughts on the matter about developers that are holding back or might have some hesitations of committing to a sustainability agenda?
We're a group of companies, and we have a solar company, and also have this building technology that we are also collaborating with other developers. And it's very easy to convince developers who are truly sustainable to adopt the building technology, for instance, because they are already in there. Their heart is in there. However, when you start talking to other developers who are just mindful of the costs, it's so difficult, because we start comparing hollow blocks to this high-tech technology. I mean, it's like comparing apples to oranges. And yet, when you see the impact on buyers, for instance, aside from being mold-free, that technology lasts 267 years. That kind of panel lasts 267 years. There's no other panel that can last that long. So when you start telling them that, the immediate answer would be, oh, I mean, the buyers won't care if it will last 267 years. But even if you just say, okay, what about 100 years? So what we do is we just say it lasts 100 years, because we do have a certification on that. But when you say 100 years and you compare a hollow blocks, which is an ordinary block that lasts only 30 years, then you see the value of that particular house to be growing 7 times compared to the hollow blocks, because at the end of the 30 years, that hollow blocks is gone. So value for money of the buyer, it's there. And at the same time, it's green. At the same time, it's healthy. At the same time, it's easily buildable. So when you start explaining this, it's so hard for them to compare the cost of the hollow blocks and compare it to this technology that costs a little bit, say 10 to 15% higher. But then when you compare it, the benefit of that 15% goes to the buyer as well as to the developer, because the way to construct these new building technologies comes from the factory, and it's built, the walls are built in 4 hours compared to 30 days. So we're still having that struggle, but many of those people who got interested in us are now talking to us again because of the pandemic. And I think one of the big attractions that when you consider precast light panels being set up in hours, like a 2-story in 4 hours in the site, you'd only need 3 people to install it. And when you start using hollow blocks, then at this point, even if we open under GCQ, you will need at least 8 to 10 people to put the hollow blocks and then put the electrical, put the pipes and all that. So you need, and these people are going to stay there for 30 days just to set it up, put it up. With that kind of technology, it's there in 4 hours. Social distancing becomes perfect, and then you don't have that kind of that problem. So so that the new normal is going to be changing. So because a lot of developers will be thinking, oh my God, how are we going to go back there with a lot of people again? What if this pandemic come back? So I can see a lot of potential that they will adopt the new innovations for green technology that's easy to build and all that. So because of the trying times.
All right, thank you. And then my next question is addressed to the panel, because all three of us sitting here today are proponents of this healthy building agenda, right? I like to think that just as developers in the Philippines were getting up to speed with their sustainability efforts, we have now the COVID-19 pandemic, which suddenly threatens their very survival. So my question to each of the panelists is, how should developers in the Philippines in particular maintain that sustainability agenda as they deal with an existential challenge? Perhaps starting with Marla from Filigree.
Yeah. I think I don't think the word should be threatened. I think they should be challenged actually to construct better buildings. By better, we mean healthy buildings, right? Green and healthy buildings that are more people focused. This pandemic or COVID-19, the new normal, will actually really will really inspire and push the developers to innovate and to think out of the box, to be more mindful of their actions also. Um, because also the market will be more meticulous about their future purchase, right? I mean, even with non-residential, even with the skeletal system for workforce, I mean, you want to go to a building that's secure, that's safety, that's healthy, that will secure your safety, and that will follow sanitation standards. So there's a really an awakened effort for all developers really to do better. Again, it's not, if you do it at the get-go, at the onset, I think you save more money, you become more cost efficient, rather than building something that isn't well thought out and then just eventually changing it. But also, I'm not saying that existing buildings don't have the chance anymore to be a green building or a sustainable building, a healthy building. Of course, there are still measures and steps that they can take to improve their current operation. It's also hand in hand with their property management team. So there's always time and effort to change, but of course, again, it's better to do it at the onset. Also, I want to go back to what Chris said earlier. It's not easy being, because Filigree has 2 awards for botanical nature residences for its design, sustainability, innovation. Its other property, which is a village, also won an award for best subdivision in Asia Pacific property. It's not easy to get to these green sustainability awards. As our president also said, the end goal is not to be awarded. We're not getting qualified in these award giving bodies just to win the award. This isn't the end goal. Really, what we get out of this is the professional guidance that we're on to the right track, that when we say we're green buildings, we're really following strict measures, strict guidelines. We're really supported by professionals who knows the business better. We're being guided by best practices. So I think that's one thing also that developers should keep in mind, that these award giving bodies, or at least LEED, Verde, these green councils are actually very helpful in, I guess, taking you to the right path and making you a very stable and legitimate green and healthy building. The overall impact is really just it's long-standing, and again, it's future ready. We just really have to continue to innovate. It's a growing responsibility. Again, it's a growing responsibility. It's an essential now. It's a must. Everyone will feel that because of what's happening now. So again, I don't think it's a threat. It's a challenge for developers to do better, to innovate.
Thank you, Marla. Chris, what are your thoughts on the matter?
Well, I think sustainability and and designing with regards to health, personal health in mind, go hand in hand. Essentially, sustainability really means the environment, the economy, and society. Right? So people, planet, profit. You have to take care of all of that for everything to be sustainable. And you know, coming up with green buildings, designing green, building green, really just helps the environment. And putting in the wellness features, considering the health and well-being of either residents or office tenants, just supports that. Um, so I think as developers, that Marla's right. It's a challenge. You need to look at your market, and after this, the market will demand all of these features to be in place. They would move and prefer to stay in homes, in office buildings, in condos that provide for a better well-being and health, uh, overall satisfaction of people who occupy them. So for me, we want to get better at what we're doing to ensure that the future is better for the people who occupy our properties. And I hope developers can also be quick in addressing all of these demands from our buyers and future tenants.
Right, jumping in on that thought real quick, Chris, like Marla mentioned just now, buyers, tenants, property seekers are getting a little bit more meticulous in their demands. When we talk about the buyers' demands, how should they trust a developer on the building's level of sustainability? Is it just certifications that we're looking at?
Well, the certifications are really just guides. No, it's really just a way to quantify and to measure and to ensure that a property satisfies certain requirements to meet levels of sustainability and wellness. There has to be a way for you to determine the level of green and sustainability of certain properties, and those certifications allow for that. Whether it be any of the green building councils, from LEED to Verde, to the IFC Edge, and to the International Well Building Institute for the well certifications. These are all guides and measures, but buyers can actually determine that by the quality of the properties. You could actually see and feel all of this when you either inspect or visit a property that incorporates all of these elements and features. Those certifications are either plaques or papers, but nothing beats actually the actual experience, and you would feel that. Our residents in our area condominium project in BGC always say that they actually love living there because it feels really good. Plus, the experience is they save a lot in terms of the energy savings, water. So as Marla and Emma mentioned earlier, the features that all of this bring to a property, first and foremost, the resident should be able to experience it and feel it. Yeah.
Right. When we talk about that feel-good experience, physical experience on ground, if I was a property seeker today and if I were to visit one of the buildings, what are some traits that I'm looking out for?
Well, if you were looking for, say, depends if you're looking for a home, a residence, or if you were looking for a workplace. Let me start off with, say, the workplace, right? A lot of the features and the elements that we've all been talking about would be present in an office building that would be certified by a green building council. So of course, the higher the certification level, then that means the features that you're looking for would have better and more of the green features. One is you know, the amount of light that comes in. There's that feeling of airiness and brightness that leads to one's positive feeling. The air quality is another thing, and I think the density and you know, just the simple elements of people transport in a building. You know, the quality of your elevators and the whole system, air filtration, things like that, all combined to a more pleasant and healthy and efficient experience in an office building.
All right, thank you. Right, thanks, Chris, for sharing your thoughts. Go ahead.
And now for residential, it would be similar. First of all, you have to look for sustainable and green elements in terms of the development. Emma mentioned for their houses, they've been using solar panels, right? So renewable energy, provisions to use renewable energy, water saving features, the amount of sun, quality air, the amount of open space, the type of materials that the developer has used for the home. Of course, the lower carbon embedded particles in each material makes it a lot healthier for the residents. A lot of things, including the utilization of smart features, automation. All of that lends itself to a better lifestyle, which brings better health,
right? Chris,
physically and mentally.
Sure. Do you think these are going to be the new normal after this COVID-19 pandemic?
I think so.
All right. Thanks, Chris, for those thoughts. Now, moving on to Emma, actually, I have one final thought on this panel. Emma, do you think that this ECQ, or moving on to a GCQ, this entire COVID-19 pandemic situation, is it opening new doors from a sustainability standpoint?
First thing that came to my mind when this was happening is that a lot of our workers, millennials and all that, they when they work in the CBDs, they usually rent dormitories. Sometimes they stay in four in one. And when the pandemic came, we have a lockdown. Everybody started working from home. In my company, we were able to digitalize in 2 days. We were able to connect everyone. So a lot of these fears of people living in cramped areas are going to be potential buyers. And they probably, in my case, I would like to be in an open area with more space, safe building, safety residential communities, that really promotes healthy benefits. So we're kind of optimistic that the projects that we have are really the houses that is really now matching the pandemic, because a lot of people now are a lot of people now are asking. In fact, we're still selling, And when we talk about solar on the roof, it's before say it's expensive. It's not. It's a myth that it's expensive, because the solar cost just takes care of your electrical bills, and then the house itself is separated. Now, when it comes to the green building that we use, it's probably 1,000 pesos more, but equivalent to the value given over the years. It's like savings of 13,000 pesos a month for the no repair and maintenance for the building. So these kind of features and the fear of people of living in cramped areas is probably going to change. And in fact, a lot of developers are talking about that. Many of their communities now are going to be replanned, where everything is there. Everything's say walkable, and some kind of commercial space where there are pharmacy and all that, and bicycle and some kind of leisure. And another feature that we incorporated in one of our development in Silang, so we're putting up 17 buildings there, lots of space using all this technology we have, is that we will probably incorporate workspace in the area on our club, so that work home. Because I, as a company owner, I now agree to work from home. For 50% of my employees are already could really do work from home, and we're able to adopt the activities by giving them assignments, and every morning they submit their assignment, and auditors are going around the workplace checking it. And I'd like to maintain that, not only for my company's sake, but also for environment's sake. The lesser cars you have in the street, the lesser commuters you have in the street, the better it is for the environment. So if the people, 50% of our workforce are going to be working from home, then a lot of them will be thinking of a nice community outside of the CBDs, right? So many of them would like to live in the areas where it's healthier and a lot less polluted.
Thank you, Emma, for sharing your insights on the matter. Marla, on behalf of Filigree, what are your thoughts on this? Is the pandemic situation opening new doors for you?
Yes, definitely. I think actually for Filigree, I think it even strengthens our brand vision and brand strategy even more. Because as you see for Filigree, there are 4 characteristics that we really prioritize in our projects. Okay, so it's location, space, design, and the presence of nature. If you study all this actually affects the overall well-being of the resident. When you say location, are we building in a place wherein that resident or tenant or office worker can move freely or can have better access to convenience stores, to banks, or essential services, basically? When you say space, most of our projects are actually condominiums. We have one village, but there is sometimes a misconception in condominiums that it's kind of restricted living, right? And we don't want that misconception for our projects. We always make sure that they have enough space to live, that it's flexible, that the layout it's breathable, they can move around easily, design it easily. Another thing is design. Design is very important, most especially now for the pandemic. As I've said, I think the market should look into, the design of the building? Is there natural daylight, the ventilation, simple things like that actually. Social distancing, for example, in our projects, we try to limit it. Well, for the more premium ones, of course, there's like 10 units to a floor. Some have even 4 units to a floor. But we also have projects that aren't that low in density, but still at the same time we try to maintain it in such a way that you still have that exclusive feel, and that you don't feel like you're all side by side or near each other's unit. So again, that aids in social distancing. Last, but something that is very important to us is the presence of nature. We really believe in the overall lasting impact of having greens very accessible to you, whether it's just by going out of your balcony and easily seeing an obstructed view of a garden city, or having a lush garden landscape, which we have in nature residences. For two of our projects, we actually made sure to have 70% of the development dedicated to open green spaces. Also, like lifestyle amenities, do they have amenities that will be able to help you live a rated lifestyle, right? For you to exercise, to relax, even to bring up your immune system. I think these four characteristics are things that the market should really look into when looking for a property, both non-residential and residential. And yes, developers should also concentrate and focus on these aspects. Again, just to sum it up, design, operation, and the factors that can help you be a green property all play a major role in making you a healthy building. And now more than ever, it's very, very essential for us developers to really push forward with this and to be more aware, I guess, of what has to be done. It's our responsibility. I hope I answered your question right.
Yeah, thank you, Marla,
Okay.
for those thoughts. Chris, for you and on behalf of Arthaland, has this COVID pandemic created opportunities for you? What is your silver lining?
Well, I think for us, it provides a spotlight really on the importance of the things that we believe in. No? As I mentioned, we as a company we've adopted a design philosophy where we want to leave a legacy of sustainable developments, and the silver lining here is it allows our market as well as our other stakeholders to truly understand and appreciate all of these, the things that the reason why we build things this way, why we actually want to come up with these types of developments. It allows people to better appreciate all of those elements and features. So I have my dog here with me. But I see that as a silver lining, and not just for our Arthaland, but we would actually prefer that other developers who before did not see the importance of sustainability, green practices, and ensuring wellness and health in their developments would actually also appreciate all of this now and understand that it's actually a must. So we would like to see others in our industry to actually adopt all of this, and the whole industry move towards a more sustainable way of doing things.
All right, thank you, Chris. And very big thank you again to three of my guests for sharing a variety of opinions today. Now, to recap, our topic today was about healthy buildings and sustainable initiatives, where our panelists shared insights, their thoughts on the correlation between the COVID-19 pandemic to healthy buildings. Once again, my guests are Christopher Narciso, Executive Vice President at Arthaland Development Corporation. We have Emma Imperial, President and CEO of Imperial Homes Corporation, as well as Marla Mendoza, Assistant Marketing Manager at Filigree. For our viewers catching us live today, please do leave questions for us in the comments section if you'd like to know more. Thank you to our panelists again. Have a good afternoon.
Thank you too. Pleasure.
Thank you. Thank you.
Very much.